Today we're installing an egress window on an existing block foundation. I don't think anybody can hear me because of this dog barking over here, and he will not stop. He won't come any closer to me because he's got a dog fence right there. Even though the dog fence is off, because we ended up having to move this line and disconnecting it right over here. So here we go. Get to do some more.
As you can see here, you have to be very careful as you're digging up against a block foundation. The blocks could end up getting pushed in with the excavator. The excavator is very powerful. Also, we have a 2-foot overhang on the house, so I have to be at a distance where I can curl my bucket, but at the top of my knuckle, I don't end up hitting the roof or the gutter, because then that would end up being very bad. So periodically as I dig, my dad there will end up getting in the hole and digging dirt away from the foundation. Now if this was a concrete poured wall, then I would be able to scrape up against the wall if we felt the wall was in good enough shape, you know, a fairly new one. So those are the two different ways you have to go about it, depending on how the foundation is constructed. You want to be more careful instead of paying for something or fixing something that is not needing to be done.
Hey! Come here!
These dogs were desperate for somebody to end up playing fetch with. But they're very intelligent. They knew exactly where their fence was at. I threw it right past there. They weren't going after it. Even though it was disconnected, they still remembered their boundaries. Dogs are very intelligent. Very, very intelligent. These guys, they were a little annoying. As you can tell through the film, they did a lot of barking, but dogs are man's best friend. After we have the hole dug to depth, now we will place 6 to 8 inches of CA7 in the bottom for drainage. This will allow any water that gets around the window well after it is installed around the egress window to drain into the tile system that should be installed on the foundation. We also make sure that when we install the egress window wells that we also put a grate on it so no kids can fall in it, and it also has a plastic lid to keep as much rain out of there as possible. This is the process because you also want the gravel down there for whenever you're cutting the actual foundation itself. Whenever you're cutting the foundation, you use water in order to turn the concrete dust into actually a concrete slurry, so you do not have to worry about that dust getting in the air and into your lungs.
Well, I tried to tell Steve that time.
We are now cutting with the Husqvarna cut and break saw. It is a saw that's got a blade. Well, it's actually got 2 blades. The 2 blades are 1 inch apart, and it cuts up to 2-inch depth. Then you have this little breaker bar, and after you cut your 2-inch depth, you put the breaker bar in there, and you break out the concrete that was left in the middle of the 2 blades. And then after you break out that concrete, then you're able to stick the saw back in that hole and cut another 2 inches. I've also heard the saw called a plunge saw or a rim saw, but it's a very effective weapon on cutting these foundations, because if you use a 14-inch chop saw or a cutoff saw with a single blade, you can only cut 4 inches deep, so therefore then you have to flip to the other side and get in the basement and actually cut from the basement side, which then makes one heck of a mess inside the basement. You don't want to do it. It's not fun. So you like to cut everything from the outside. It makes the cleanest cut possible. We still have the inside plastic off, so if he ends up cutting through before he realizes it and gets a little bit of water in there, it's not spraying all over the bedroom that is placed downstairs. Also, whenever he's got to do grinding later on in order to fix the hole up towards the siding, because you can only go so high, he's not you can't use water on that particular electric grinder, so you do get a little bit of concrete dust in the air. That minimizes that also. So here he is, he's already making his first cut across the bottom, and then he's going to end up working his way upward on the both sides. He is now working on his first vertical cut. He's basically going to end up cutting both sides and basically get his picture frame done, and that way he does not lose any of the lines he's already drawn on the wall. Then from there, he'll just keep on plunging the saw in there, breaking off another 2 inches, and keep on working that saw in, and then breaking off 2 inches and in again, and breaking off 2 inches again. Now that he's got the right side cut, he is moving over to the left side to finish the picture frame. He is now checking his width. They made the initial measurement, put the lines up on the wall, but sometimes whenever you cut, you don't get that totally perfect. So he's checking it at the top, in the middle, on the bottom. Now, the reason he's checking it is because he's already cut one side, so he's established one side. So he's double checking the other side that he really hasn't really cut yet. So then he's going to bring his level in there. He's going to take a look at it after he made some measurements, and he's going to make any type of adjustment right now. Because it is not cut yet, the other side is already cut. So he's going to redo his line. There he is, redoing his line and making those adjustments because of maybe he ended up getting a little bit in or out on the other side, or it ended up running just one way or the other. So he's making adjustments now before he does that second cut. And he's sneezing. So whenever you do make this second cut, and after you do it, it is what it is. There really isn't much adjustment except with a grinder. So you like to take your time on this, make sure you're right on, and make sure that this cut will be the final and awesome cut. It's just like anything else. They always say measure twice, cut once. We have cut this egress window in where an existing window was. So right now the frame is still in there. We have cut the bottom of the window, the existing window, in order to get these two upper blocks out of there. But right now the frame is holding us up, so now we're having to take a grinder and cut it and pry it out of there. We have the window frame out, but these two upper blocks are being stubborn. We figured out that they ended up having anchor bolts right on either side of the window attached to the seal plate. So right now we're trying to chip it out of there because there's no way of really getting a Sawzall in there and cutting the anchor bolts except from the inside, which we already have all plasticed off. So we're just going to chip it this way and get it out of there and break it loose. Now we've put the chipper away and we're going with the sledgehammer. The sledgehammer, he's going very delicately, holding it on the back side so it don't swing around, end up hurting somebody, or which the only person he would hurt is himself, or tear up the siding. So he's getting it out little piece by piece. Little piece by piece, and eventually he'll get that bottom block off there.
What you said?
That's some good mortar.
Dad makes a comment that the mortar was good. Yes, it was. They did a good job on actually building this block foundation. And we discovered some rebar in there, so that's probably what's holding it up. More than anything, that's why it won't break apart. That's why whenever you're building block foundations back in the day, and my grandpa started off building block foundations, you would end up laying your blocks and then you would order ready mix or use the mortar on site and stuff concrete down through the cores of the blocks and then shove rebar in there and tie all those walls together with the rebar and the concrete or mortar. So now he's getting his crowbar. He's going to work it loose off the seal plate. This is probably one of the harder parts, is getting everything loose to where you don't end up having that big panel pinned up against the seal plate. You always want to end up, cutting your picture frame, then cutting somewhere in a relief joint. So you're only taking out one half at a time. And usually we're always cutting these in where an existing window is. So usually we always cut across like we did at the bottom of the window. So we only have to cut the two sides. You don't have to cut the window part. And then we get that top part out, and once you get the top part out, then the other part can just kind of lean in. Now we have not cut through all the way on the bottom part yet. We've still got probably another 2 cuts to do on it. There's probably another 3 to 4 inches holding it. So that way we don't end up having a problem leaning up against it and it just breaking off or falling in.
The hell is that?
That was me talking here in the background. I'm just trying to relay to everybody in the audience that you didn't cut through it.
Take your earplugs out.
Great hearing protection whenever the saw is running, but makes you a very bad listener whenever the saw is not in play. Got those 2 top blocks out finally. Made our final cuts around the rest of the giant piece of block that was still in there. Made the bottom cut all the way through first, the 2 side cuts second, and now she's out. While my brother Jamie has been getting that section of block wall out, my dad over here on the right has been mixing up mortar in order to dress those blocks back up because they've got all those voids now in them. He's measuring to make sure that our opening is big enough, and then we'll do any trimming he needs to with his grinder.
51 1/4 down here.
After he gets done doing the grinding, we do the patching with the mortar, then we'll end up putting in a 2x6 treated wood frame. The treated wood frame will be what we end up attaching the window to. We use a 2x6 on an 8-inch wall, so the window is inset by a couple inches on the foundation. What that enables is whenever you get a hard rain and the water is running down the siding, it doesn't go and try to work its way behind the window. Even though we're going to caulk it, it ends up giving it another little overhang that keeps it out of the weather and the rain. On this particular house, having a 2-foot overhang, and then us unsetting that window and putting the grate on there, also with the plastic lid on top of the grate that will keep water out of this, should be a pretty watertight seal after we end up caulking it. But you never know about water and how it tries to penetrate stuff that you can't oversee. I'm getting the excavator ready in order to get those sections of block wall out of there the easy way. We've got our boards cut to length. Now we are getting them into place and we're going to tap-con them to the wall. This is after we have patched everything with our mortar. As you can see, that bottom row now is totally filled in with the mortar.
Yeah. Thought for a minute it was going to stop.
I did too.
But it didn't. Yeah.
Now the frame is installed, and he takes the rest of the mortar and touches up anything that is going to be showing on the sides. This enables this to be a very nice and neat install that looks like it was done whenever the foundation was installed from the get-go.
Out here on the job site yesterday, they ended up installing the window and the window well in the rain, got the job done. I wasn't here, ended up running doing some estimates, running some errands. So here's a look at what it looks like now. Here's the ladder that we got to hang in there. And then we got to put on the plastic cover. So sometimes you got to work in the rain in order to get some things done. Especially when you don't get many months in order to do work. Now we've got to load the dirt and get it hauled out of here.
To finish the installation of the window well, you must end up putting some type of drainage rock around it. In this particular situation, we are using the CA7 that was left over from what we ended up using to put in the bottom of the hole. This rock will enable no mud from getting up against the corrugated side and pulling down on the window well whenever it settles and away from the foundation. This rock will end up being filled within 8 inches of final grate. That the last 8 inches will end up being some of the soil put back in place, so you can end up planting grass. This enables no dirt settling and pulling on those corrugated sides on those window wells and pulling it away from the foundation. This is something that we've done for decades on installing window wells on either egress windows on existing foundations or egress windows on new foundations. Now that the rock is in place, we now backfill the area with about 8 inches of dirt from the dig. Whatever dirt is left over, we will end up loading up and hauling off if the homeowner does not want it. If the homeowner wants some in some low spots that are pretty close by, we will spread them in those low spots. On this particular situation, he had a low spot in the corner behind my brother Jamie there, in the very right of the picture frame. We ended up, before we ended up leaving, spreading some dirt over that area. He'll plant grass seed whenever it gets a little warmer, and he'll end up having that area filled back in and positive drainage away from his foundation. This is what it should look like after you end up installing the dirt back around the window well. As you can see that we've got the dirt in there nice and graded with positive drainage away from the window well. In order to minimize during the wet season impact to our customers' yards, we end up loading the extra dirt that we're going to haul out of there into a power buggy with the excavator. If we end up taking our skid steer back and forth, we'll end up running ruts into the yard if we don't end up putting down plywood. And in this case, we did not have enough plywood to get to this backyard from the driveway. So it was just easier to load the extra dirt into the buggy. My brother ends up taking it around to the front, dumping it, and then we take the skid steer from there after he's dumped it on the road and load it onto the dump truck. Thank you for watching our video today on egress windows. I hope it was educational as it was also entertaining. We will have more videos in the upcoming months on how to do different concrete contracting projects. If you have any questions, please leave comments and I will respond. You also can visit our website at www.quickandeasyconcretecreations.com. We appreciate everything, and then if you are in the Central Illinois area and looking to get an egress window installed and do not want to attempt it yourself, give us a call, 217-454-7772. If you enjoy our videos, I please would recommend you subscribing so you end up seeing our new content as it comes live. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to visit our website and email me or give us a phone call. Thanks a lot again for watching our video.